Episode 22 of the Grandsire podcast. I always have to say it just because I want to acknowledge how shitty the name of the podcast is, but I'm super creative. We know that. I'm excited about today's guest today, Hunter Homistek. You know, man, I put all of the different jobs I could think of on Twitter, and I feel like that was only like half of them, but you know who he is, Hunter Homistek. What's going on, sir? How are you?
What's up, dude? I'm doing super well. I appreciate you having me on the show. Cleverly named, as you said. You know what's funny is that actually, like, today, I'll liken it to this. Like, everybody has tattoos nowadays, right? Like, I have several tattoos. It's actually more rare to not have tattoos, I think, at this point. There you go. So going with the Grandsire podcast is actually more unique than a crazy name. Like, you just kept it real. You're like Jimi Hendricks Experience. There's no need for a crazy name for this band. We know what it is.
I was trying to think of like the shitty like MMA names, you know, like kick to the liver and then, you know, right hook to the chin or something. And then I was like, you know what? It's my name. I'm not creative. So let's just, and you know, and it's my show. Right. So I can just name it my name and there we go.
Yeah, and it puts all the pressure on you now. If you have a terrible show, it's like the Grandsire podcast was horrible this week, and then your name's in it. Like, you can't get away with people not knowing who it is doing the interview. You're locked in now.
I blame it on the guest 100%. It's never my fault. Like, I'm here. I'm the one constant. If it sucks, like, what's different about the show? It's the guest. So you put the pressure on me. You're like, it's going to be awesome. It's like, oh, man, he's putting some pressure on me. Like, what if it sucks? Like, blame it on Hunter. You know, Hunter's super dry and, you know, like, that's just who you are.
Yeah, I'll take it. Listen, I can take all the heat. When you've been writing, especially about MMA or writing online at all, you're used to people just slamming you all day. So we're good. We're good. Bring the heat.
Speaking of dry, I have to say, like, I was thinking today about stuff for the podcast stuff, and I was like, I remember you put out a tweet about eating a whole, what is it? The chicken, the rotisserie chicken, right? Like, and that was years ago. And I was like, who just eats a whole ass chicken with their bare hands? And sure enough, I go on Twitter today, and there he is, and waiting at a car wash, eating a whole ass chicken again.
Dude, that's real life.
I was like, that is amazing. That's got to be the most amazing thing to happen, you know, in a long time.
Dude, it happens. So here in Pennsylvania, we finally got some warm weather. It's like 50, 55 degrees or so, and the snow's starting to melt. So everybody's going to get their car washed now because they're all salty and dirty and everything from the winter and the snow. The line was just like literally 20 cars deep. So I was sitting there, and I had just gone to Sam's Club before the car wash, which I should have reversed the order in hindsight, but hey, I didn't. So I got a rotisserie chicken at Sam's Club, and I was sitting there, and I'm like, dude, I'm hungry as hell. And I kept smelling this rotisserie chicken next to me. So I was like, whatever, I'm sitting here. I just popped it open and started grabbing handfuls of this chicken, man. Dude, fresh rotisserie chicken. Like, if you guys haven't ever eaten a fresh rotisserie, it has to be fresh. It has to still be warm from the store. Can't be sitting for a day. Can't go into your fridge and then come back out. When it's fresh, it's like one of the great gifts to mankind, man.
I remember thinking, like, I know you're supposed to eat chicken because it's healthy and it's lean, build muscle and all that stuff, but I was like, seriously, even The Rock doesn't pound a whole ass chicken in his car like that. I mean, and I could just imagine, like, just a handful palming the whole chicken, just sitting there, and then people looking at you, what's got? You know, got to get my protein in.
Dude, the best part is that it was actually in my trunk. So I was sitting there, and I had to get out of the car, pop my trunk, get it. So, like, people saw me go into my trunk and grab this chicken and just go back to the driver's seat with it. Because it's a SUV, so the trunk is like open to the car. I could just smell it. Like, I could smell it the whole time. I'm like, I can't sit here and smell this chicken and not eat it. So, hey, man, desperate times, you know.
That's such a power move. Did you finish the chicken though? I think the people want to know. Like,
no, I for sure did not finish the chicken this time, but my dog's gonna enjoy some of it. It's the ultimate meal because it's delicious for you, and then whatever you can't eat, you know, you shred it up for the dog, and it's like the best meal the dog's ever had too. So it's a win-win.
Well, to be fair, every meal you give your dog is the best meal they've ever. I don't think I've ever fed my dog anything that wasn't amazing. Ziploc bags, paper, like you name it, it's the most amazing. And if it's contraband, it's even tastier. It's like the greatest thing in their lives.
Absolutely true. You nailed it. Do you have a dog?
Yes, I do have a 6-month-old pain in the Weimaraner, and man,
nice little hunting dog. I like it.
It's smart, but it's like the people forget to tell you, like, if it's smart, like it decides things, it figures things, like it figured out the baby gate, the crate, like every, you know, people forget to tell you that. They're like, oh, use it to train it. What about when it figures stuff out and doesn't feel like doing things? They kind of forget to tell you that.
It's like the problem with robots, right? We keep making them too smart, and they're eventually going to take over the world. That's like a smart dog. I feel the same with ours. She can open doors and stuff. It's a German Shepherd, so super smart and just alert all the time, constantly guarding and constantly trying to cause mischief. So, but she's the best. I mean, we love her.
Of course, and you're not gonna name drop her. I believe it's Babs, right? The famous
Babs,
like
yeah.
doesn't Slim Jim like have tried to sponsor her,
Dude,
shout her out? Like, what is that?
I'm glad you've noticed because I'm working on that unintentionally, but they keep responding. Like I keep doing these 30-second Slim Jim reviews and Babs just finds her way into them. Obviously, if there's a Slim Jim, you know, the dog's going to find her way to the Slim Jim. Slim Jim keeps responding. So I don't know, man. I'm trying to hook up Purina, Slim Jim. Somebody hit me up. Let's get Babs sponsored.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm one of those guys. Like, if I see a blue check mark respond, I get excited. But if it's a brand like Slim Jim
Oh,
name
hell
dropping
yeah.
your dog, like
That's what I'm
I
saying.
feel for you. I'm like, that's got to be the greatest day of Hunter's life. Like Slim Jim is talking about your dog for everybody to see.
Dude, it's sick. I'm not going to lie. Like Slim Jim, that's way up there. I'm trying to think of the best Twitter interaction ever. And it's got to be not my personal account, but that time Conor McGregor retweeted our video on Flow Combat, our whiskey taste test with his proper 12. The Conor McGregor retweet was next level, dude. Like I couldn't even log on to Twitter for like 3 days because it was just constant notifications. I mean, the power that dude has on social media doesn't even make sense. I always used to think when I was like first on Twitter and stuff, and you know, you have 500 followers and you're every time somebody says something to you, you're right away answering them right back. And like whenever you see a celebrity get asked a question and not answer it, it's like, oh man, what a dick. Like, how could he not do that? But then like, I got a very, very small taste of that whenever Conor McGregor retweeted it. And it was just like, you cannot keep up with that. So, you know, it gave me a new perspective. Like these celebrities you can't answer everything. There's a 0% chance. So when I see, especially like fighters and stuff who are getting trash talked and sometimes it's negative, like the ones that are engaging, like Bilal Muhammad, guys like that who are constantly answering fans, dude, it's like respect, bro. Like that's a grind. His Twitter game is strong.
For sure. I imagine when you ran Flow Combat, like you must have gotten a lot of attention because that's what you were good at, getting the engagement. But once that blue check came and everybody's like, hold up, like this guy got some clout. Like I imagine Twitter was impossible. Even your DMs, half of it, let me write for you. And, you know, half of those were just me, but other people, I'm sure. And then everybody else hitting you up about, you know, God knows what on that account.
Dude, you outed yourself there for sure. We had a lot of people hitting us up to write, and it was thankfully, like I'm really proud of the way Flow Combat operated. Like we tried not to have guys write for free. Like we really did want to pay everybody at least something to get started, because so much of writing in today's world, as you know, so much of content creation in general is like, do it for free and maybe down the line we'll get you something, but probably not. But maybe, hey, you do real good.
Right.
It's kind of like that. So it was tough because I had to turn a lot of people down who were otherwise good. And then there were people like you who were just so gung-ho, like, dude, I don't care. I just want a platform. Like, just let me do my shit. And I'm like, all right, listen, I'll help you. But then, you know, I tried to take an interest, and I think I tried to help you as an editor and help you learn and really develop. And look at you now. I love it.
I don't know about all that. No, but about the looking at me now part. Obviously, you were very helpful. But I look back at the Flow Combat, and it's like there's so much shit that was helpful. And the other half I'm cringing at. I'm like, oh my God. Like, or even I'm sure if I were to look back at some of our texts, like, did I really text Hunter that? Did I really do that? And then you try to remember, like, you know, you're younger and stuff, but still it's like, you know, man, if you go back in time, it's like, hey, dumbass, stop doing that. You know, just, oh man, some things you really cringe at when you think back about it.
Dude, I feel like if that's not the case, you're not trying hard enough. Like I really feel that way, because I feel that way about so much that I do, dude. I'll read old articles of mine and just be like, what was I doing? Like the Bleacher Report days, especially, because that's when I was still in college, I was writing for Bleacher Report. So I had really no basis for anything. I was just kind of an MMA fan writing about MMA. And I knew that like the crazier you were, the more reads and comments you got. So like I'm reading my articles, I'm like, dude, what was I even saying? Like it's just so off the rails and unnecessary and just so fluffy, and just clearly a kid who had like no training, had no idea what he was doing, just throwing words on the page. But it was working. I mean, it was getting engagement and everything, like you said. So there's something to it in that way. But like to your point of cringing, like I genuinely think if you're not looking back at your past work and cringing, then you're just not trying hard enough. Like that, you can't just stay in one spot and ever expect to grow. I mean, that's what I was telling you kind of before we jumped on air, that I've respected of you for so long, is like you were getting started with the video interviews before you had, you know, this good looking template, this good background. I've seen so many writers who will get stuck. They'll be like, well, I don't have the best stuff, so I can't do it. Oh, I don't look professional, so I can't do it. Or whatever it may be, you know, they don't want to even try because they're not the best at it yet. And that's how you get stuck, man. That's how you just fail to progress and get in your own head and think you can't do it. Like, even if your writing sucks, you got to write. Like, if you say you're a writer, you got to write. That's what a writer's write. I mean, that just is it. Even if you think you don't have an idea or it's not fully developed, like, put it down. I'm not saying you have to publish it, but I'm saying writers write. Like, if you call yourself a writer, but you never actually write anything, guess you're not a writer. So, yeah.
I think the thing is you get so excited about something because you always get it. What is it? New is always better, right? You think about something new and you're like, holy shit, I'm going to do this thing. It's going to be awesome. At the time you think it's awesome. And then you look back, or you have someone that's like, hey man, this is not awesome. Yeah. Then you look back on it and it's like, oh man. And you're thankful because it's like, that's part of the growing process. But at the same time, like, you look at some of the most viewed stuff is some of your shittiest stuff. And you're like, no, like, why is that what people are looking at? Or, the comments are negative on Reddit. It's like, I know you don't have to tell me, like, I see it now, but at the time, like, I'm thinking like I'm on to something. And now you're like, you were on to nothing. It's frustrating, but you, to your credit, you were nice about it, but it's kind of like, hey man, you know what I mean? It's like, I like where your head's at. I can appreciate it, but maybe we turn to something we're a little bit less shitty at. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, that's it. I mean, that's how you got to grow. And I'm thankful because I had good editors along the way that did the same with me, and mentors that, you got to respect them, or else whenever they give you advice, you're just brushing it off and feeling attacked instead. Like, that's something that I tried to do, and I hope I got through, is like, whenever I'm editing or saying these things, I'm not mad at you at all. Like, I'm not scolding you or anything like that. I'm literally just trying to help you. But I had to do that now, like at the Brawl Network. This guy, a new writer we just brought on, Josh Emery, who I'm really impressed with. Like, he was actually a former pro fighter, had to quit early due to health complications and stuff, but he's getting interested in podcasting and writing. So he's very raw on that front, but he has a great MMA knowledge. And he wrote this article about, should Israel Adesanya jump up to light heavyweight? Like, is that the right move for him? And the whole piece didn't mention that he did move up and has a title fight scheduled very soon. Like, the whole piece was just talking about it. And I'm like, I get it. Like, I know why you're thinking this way, but the readers are going to destroy you if you don't at least mention the fact that he did it. Like, they're going to say, dude, did you even know that he actually did this? And I'm like, I know you know, because you watch every event, you're tuned into everything. You were just so locked in on your idea that you missed that vital context. So that's the kind of stuff that, like, when I come back, like, I wasn't telling him it was a bad idea or it was a bad article or anything like that. I was just like, this is going to help you because your Twitter replies are going to be nasty for a while if you don't do it.
Oh man, if you can't nitpick yourself or have someone nitpick it, like, the people will do it for you. You post that thing on Reddit, like, people are going to find every single hole, and you're like, oh man, like, they found everything. They found stuff about me I didn't even know about. And then you're in your own head. And then it's like, the people are vicious, but you also have to have someone that's willing to tell you that, you know what I mean? It's like, listen, like, you're on to something, but you're missing something crucial to really bring it all together. And I think that's a very important thing too.
Oh, it's huge, man. You nailed it there for sure. Like I said, I'm super thankful for my editors. People get shy, I think, when it comes to editing or being critiqued, I should say. People get really sensitive, and it makes sense because this writing is a little bit artistic and video production is a little bit artistic. Like, there's a little bit of yourself. If you're doing it right, if you're going for it and you're really proud of your work, there's a little bit of yourself in everything you do. So when a criticism comes back, man, it can sting for sure. Like, I get that completely, but it's like you've said, understanding that it's coming from the right place and designed to help you grow. I mean, I think that's what really separates writers from climbing the ladder versus just staying where they are. Like you've always taken criticism extremely well and applied it. Like, that's what it's for. Like, you're not supposed to just get in your feels and be like, oh, you didn't like my article, I'm going to go quit and do the same thing again tomorrow. Like, I've seen people do that because they get in their own head and they're afraid to push the bar. But, like, dude, if you're not going up, and like I said repeatedly, if you're not cringing at your past work, then you're not doing the right thing. That's all there is to it. And even sometimes it's not that your past work is bad. It's just that you should be so much better now than you were a year or two ago.
Well, I think that's the thing too about the criticism. I think some people, they think that they're already where they need to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the best version of myself. Then you have someone that's like, well, this version of you isn't going anywhere. You know what I mean? It's like, I can appreciate it. You want to do this and stuff, but it's like, if you want to make it to where I'm sure you want to make it, like, this isn't the version of you that's going to do it. You know what I mean? And if you don't have anyone to tell you that, like, before I joined Flow Combat, I was at MMA Latest and I was an editor. which meant that nobody was looking at my work. I was doing my own thing, and I realized like I'm not going anywhere. You know what I mean? I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
improve. And that's why when I talked to you, it was like my biggest thing was, help me improve, which to your credit, you did a lot. And it was like, you realize not that criticism or even someone telling you suck, but if it's like, here's why you suck, maybe that's something that's a little bit helpful too.
Dude, it's a real thing. Like one of my favorite guys, I've played guitar since I was like 13 years old. And one of my favorite guys on YouTube is this guy named Ben Eller. And he does this series of lessons that it's like why your vibrato sucks, why you suck at guitar and scales. And he has this whole series of why you suck at various techniques. And it's funny, but it's also true. It's like you're saying, like, I'm not literally saying you suck. Of course, we get that. But I am saying there's room to grow. Like everybody understands that. But it's funny when you frame it as why you suck at this, because that is how some people take it. Like the people that take it to heart that way, they just get stuck in the mud, man, and they never grow. So I love your mentality from the jump when you jumped on Flow Combat, because I know, like, especially early, I mean, not going to toot our own horn, but like Dwayne and I had really high standards at at Flow Combat. Like you weren't getting junk published over there when we were there. So it had to be pretty polished, pretty good. We weren't just willing to slap anything on the site. We were very proud of everything that went on the site. So to your credit, like you adapted really quickly and became a crucial part of the team super fast. So, I mean, it's like a litmus test, if you will, for guys. Like there were several writers who came through and maybe wrote 3 articles and realized that, it's not for me. I'm not there yet, or this site is not for me. And that's fine too, because I think the content, it was funny. You kind of alluded to it earlier, but like when you see the things that blow up page views wise versus the things that, like I said earlier, take a huge part of your soul and like you're pouring your heart out into this article, not always the same thing.
Oh man, exactly. Like, I think my most viewed interview of all time is with TJ Dillashaw, which was on a big YouTube channel. I think 90,000, something like that, which was cool.
Nice.
But I look back on it and I'm like, oh dear, like, it was audio only. My voice was even squeakier than it is now. I'm looking at it and they were like, I spent half the damn thing talking about his supplements because I heard him talk about it on Joe Rogan. I don't care about his supplements. That's not what the people are there for. Like, you listen to it and it's like, that's my most viewed thing of all time. But a fighter giving me a compliment mid-interview, it has maybe like 30 views. And it's like, why don't you guys listen to that? Like, that's, that's what you want the people, and not, can you tell me about your spices? Like, really? He talked about it on Rogan, man. Why are you asking him about his spices again?
Dude, it's true though. And I think it's interesting when writers get caught up in, I'm not going to do that stuff because nobody wants to hear it, or I'm too good for that kind of mentality, because it's like, I see it both sides, because I have been on the side of marketing and editing where we want, tons of page views, tons of attention, tons of engagement, whatever it takes. Like there's a part of you when you have a job like that and you're literally just trying to drive views to your site. I don't care what it is, get people here. Like that's the mentality. Yeah. But then I've seen it from the other side too, where you're trying to break in as a new company. Like Flow Combat was brand new in 2016. MMA fighting is already established. MMA Junkies established. Sherdog was still kicking ass. Like all these guys are around, and you got to break through. You got to establish yourself as part of them. So you're not going to do that with crappy quality stuff. Like you got to come out blazing and show the people that you're serious and you can produce high quality work. So it was a really interesting balance. But then like from the traffic perspective, like you said, you got to dip your toes in the shallow water sometimes and just take that low hanging fruit, man. Like you got to not shy away from that. And if all it does, like in your case, if it got 90,000 people or however many views that interview ended up getting, now they know who you are and they may follow up. 1% of them might follow up and subscribe to you or follow you on Twitter or something like that. Maybe less than 1%, but either way, you've now exposed yourself to a way larger audience who is now going to see your future work, which will include that more high quality stuff. And they'll be like, damn, all right, I didn't know Lucas was doing this too. I thought he was actually a barbecue king talking about spices, but it turns out he's an MMA journalist. I didn't even know.
It's like, this guy covers that. I thought it was a spice guy. It's like, nah, sure enough. Like, I know nothing about spices, but you listen to one Rogan episode. Now you're the expert on low sodium, barbecue, honey mustard type spices or rubs for chicken.
It's useful, man. That's probably what my rotisserie chicken probably had TJ Dillashaw seasonings on it today.
Exactly. And, there's a joke in there somewhere about the seasonings. I'm not going to be the one to make it, but I'm just tossing it out there. But listen, you talked about Flow Combat, and I have to say one of the things that you guys did was, you mentioned breaking down the door. Like, you guys showed up and I was like, we're fucking Flow Combat and we're here. And I remember, and I know you know this, it's like the MMA Media Watch, the report thing that came out, right? And I'm sure
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
the guy who did it. Most people do, but he
yeah,
was like, these guys are coming out there and they're so arrogant. They think this. And it's
yeah,
like, it worked. Look at them. Like, Flow Combat,
yeah,
in a matter of months is up there with all these other outlets with exclusive content. All their shit looks good. The writing is excellent. And it was like, it rubbed the older people the wrong way, but like
for
for the
sure.
people that mattered, they liked it. And that's part of marketing. You gotta, sometimes you gotta shove your brand down people's throats. And that's why you guys grew so quickly and everybody kind of looked at you and Dwayne as the kind of the Shaq and Kobe from what you guys were doing.
Yeah, we were a little rebellious for sure with the way we did things, but that was all by design. Like there was never something that we just. There was one time, and I'll take this moment to apologize formally to Ariel Helwani. There was one time I went rogue on Twitter, and to this day I see both sides. I see why Young Hunter did what he did, and I also wish Young Hunter didn't do what he did. But we had an interview with Logan Storley, Bellator welterweight, and we had this exclusive when he signed with Bellator. Logan Storley signs with Bellator. It was way in the morning, like 8 a.m. Dwayne published the piece about Logan Storley signing with Bellator. Now, later that day on the MMA Hour, Logan Storley was slated to talk to Ariel on the MMA Hour. So, like, you can put the pieces together here. Like, Ariel was supposed to break the news that Logan Storley was signing with Bellator. So Ariel, played it up. Here with us, Logan Storley. And Logan, you have some big news for us. So, of course, I was listening live because I was waiting on it.
Right.
And I was on the Flow Combat account, and I instantly just started blowing Ariel up. Like, oh, really? Breaking news, huh? I thought news could only break once and stuff like dude, I just started going at him. Because now here's what I'm saying about seeing it both ways. To this day, it's embarrassing to me that I did that. And I've apologized to Ariel. Ariel and I are cool. And we worked together at MMA fighting. Right. So it was doubly uncool because we had a history of, being cool with each other and supporting each other. But my move was, as Flow Combat, this was very early in Flow Combat as well, was that if I could just get Ariel Helwani to mention us on air or to retweet us, just engage with us somehow, we're going to reach, 500,000 MMA fans like that with the snap of a finger. And I don't even care if it's for the wrong reason, because they're going to check the site out and they're going to see whoa, these guys are legit, because they're going to see the Logan Storley interview, but then they're going to see everything else too. And hopefully they're going to stick around after that. So my play was literally a pure attention grab, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. But were the tactics right? Probably not.
I don't know, man. We mentioned banging down the door, being rebellious. That seems very on brand for Flow Combat. I love that. I thought news could only break once. That's excellent. That. That's such a good line. I could just imagine little mosquito in his ear, and he's like, Logan Storley's got something to say. It's like, really? I thought he already said it, but
really,
excellent. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, we did the Breaking Bad gif and everything. Like say my name. We did that. Oh man, it was. But here's the thing that I got to applaud Flow on, was that my bosses at Flow, who were not Dwayne, they're guys that most people probably wouldn't know in the MMA space because they really weren't MMA centric. They're Nick Shank and Nick Velaquette are their names. They were fantastic, literally the best editors I've probably ever had, best bosses I've ever had in my life. And they loved it. They were loving every second of it. They were like, dude, keep going. We love it. Keep doing it. It's on brand. So if you want to talk about the structure and why sometimes that can work, it starts at the top. When they support you and understand your vision, which Flow definitely did and always kind of let us do our thing, it was one of the best jobs ever because of that, because they just fully trusted Dwayne and I to make the right calls and to do the right things. And of course we had to provide the data and the numbers and the analytics to show the site's healthy, we're doing well. They care about that, of course, but the method that it took to get there, they didn't really care. They were down for some foolishness with Ariel Helwani if that's what it took.
But isn't that the MMA? Why does everybody love Conor, right? Because he's in your face and, say my name, all that stuff.
Right.
And now you're doing it too. If you're going to attract the MMA fans, that's the way you're going to do it. You appeal to the Conor McGregor of MMA media or whatever it was.
Right.
That's the way to do it.
Right. And like I said, I worked for MMA Fighting. Dwayne worked for MMA Junkie and Heavy.com. Even Bleacher Report, for as edgy as that brand is in general, they aren't that edgy, really. Like they still definitely have standards and insanely high level TV deals and sponsorships and everything. Like there's a lot at stake if you would just go rogue and say something crazy representing Bleacher Report. So that really wasn't an option there. So at Flow, with more freedom, like you could get a little crazier, and that was fine. So we both, Dwayne and I both had a background of kind of needing to wear that leash and put that muzzle on, and like, hey, I know you're thinking this and it is funny, but don't say that. Like our brand can't handle that. At Flow, dude, it was no leash, no muzzle, off leash, just going for it. So that it was fun, and it was cool to see what we could accomplish and grow our team over the years, because the way it started was not the way it ended. Like our team, whenever Dwayne and I left and everything, it was one of the strongest teams in MMA, I think, to this day. So I loved what we assembled there.
Nah, man, it was when you guys started, like how many did you guys do the dream team thing where you brought on a ton of, because I remember at one point, like I felt like everybody had Flow Combat in their bio, and then things started to change a little bit, but how was kind of that start for you guys?
Yeah, I think Dwayne was the editor originally, and I was hired as a content marketing coordinator. So I was really promoting our live events, so those amateur and kind of more low-level pro events that we live streamed. So I was promoting those, but at the same time, like I loved writing and covering the sport so much that I was just constantly writing as well and contributing articles, editing. Just I couldn't keep my hands out of the pot, so to speak. Like I was just excited to be involved, so I was just kind of doing everything. So we were the first two, and Jeremy Botter was Dwayne's editor at the time, the managing editor. So Jeremy was involved at first. I'm trying to think of the first couple writers. I know like Jim Edwards, who I've been out of the space for so long. Like I'm honestly not sure what Jim's doing now, but he was so
Fighters Only. He's at the magazine now.
Sick. Good for him. That's good. He's a good dude, man. I always loved Jim a lot, and he was so instrumental in getting Flow Combat over the hump. Like this dude was a hustler, big time hustler. I mean, just crazy work ethic. And he was in the UK, so the time zones actually worked out beautifully, because like when Dwayne and I were sleeping, he was up working and keeping things rolling for us and really just getting work done, so that when we woke up, there was all this new content to edit and just keep things rolling right through the morning. So that was huge. And then it was like James Lynch, Damon Martin, Nolan Kings, that was like the next run, Gumby Vreeland. And then like once we had those guys, that became by far our core right there. Like once we had that team rolling with Lynch, because Lynch is, I say this, I feel like on every MMA podcast, Lynch is one of my favorite people on earth. Like literally one of the best workers, that if you want to just look up to somebody in the MMA space, I do not recommend you find a role model in MMA, first of all. Not a good call. We all suck, but one of us doesn't suck, and that's James Lynch. Like if you want somebody to look up to, model yourself after, James Lynch is that guy, dude. He would be just as excited to interview an 0-3 amateur as he would be to interview John Jones. Like straight up, this guy just loves his job, loves what he does, and it comes through in his work. And he's incredibly organized and effective at the way he does it. Just, I mean, like I said, if there's just somebody to model your work ethic after, it's James Lynch, just flat out. So when we had him on our team, that just took everything to a new level, because Dwayne and I, for everything that we do well, and I do think that we did a lot of stuff well at Flow Combat, we were never the most organized guys. We were never the most by the books guys and things like that. We were just kind of flowing with it, embracing the chaos and things like that. And then you get a guy like James Lynch and Damon Martin as well, to a degree, that are more rigid and by the books and kind of, we got this. Like you guys go over there to the strip club. We're going to hold down the fort here at home and take care of business. So like you needed that. We needed the yin and yang for sure. And we had it.
Man, James Lynch, and I have to say, the great thing about him is that he could easily be one of those guys. I know he's Canadian, so he's not allowed to do that legally, but he could easily be a huge dick. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's got countless people hitting him up. I mean, he's putting out videos for everything. Here's how I edit. Here's how I interview. And it's crazy because sometimes you do feel like I feel like this sometimes. Like, if someone figured out how to contact fighters, they could literally just come in and push me to the side. So for him to come in there, give you all these tools. And he really is, like maybe not the guy, because there's a couple guys that did the video interviews, but I mean, he's up there. I mean, even when I started doing it, first person to hit up was James Lynch. I'm like, hey man, I asked him permission. I was like, I know I'm gonna be stepping on your toes a little bit, but I wanted to get and then once you saw the actual video, you're like, oh no, man, you're fine. but no, I did want to say something to him. Cause it's like, like you're the guy, man. Like if anybody's going to come in on your territory, like I want to hit you up first. Like, The fact that he gives back so much, and and he's so interactive and stuff, you could easily reach a point where it's like, hey, listen, I'm too big for this shit. Like, I'm gonna talk to whoever I talk to. So you appreciate having a guy like that that's willing to give you advice and be honest about it. He could very easily just give you fluff stuff so you like him, but he'll tell it to you straight. So you have to appreciate people like that in the industry.
100%, man. I mean, you nailed it on so many levels with James there. And I think it's interesting in the MMA space in general, how many people share that same mindset. They may not be video heavy or grinding out 30 interviews a day like James, but even guys like I think of like Luke Thomas sticks out to me a lot from when we worked at MMA fighting together. And even to this day, like if I hit him up with something like, hey man, can you just retweet this? Like give me a little push on this. I think it's good. Like obviously he has a huge audience and people know who he is. So a retweet from him is big. And like, he'll always help me out and just do it. Like there's a lot of ego in MMA journalism, in MMA media for sure. But there's a lot of really good souls too that are willing to help each other and understand that like when we all win together. Like if you get there, then I'm coming with you and like we're going to powwow at the top. Like people that don't feel threatened, like kind of like you said about James. Like James could easily be like, why would I teach you how to do video interviews so you can eat up my space? Like why would I do that? But James is just like, I will definitely teach you how to do video interviews. And I think for him, I don't want to speak for him, but I would imagine he likes the idea of someone pushing him to keep getting better as well. Like the more people that are in the space doing what he's doing, the more he has to stay on the cutting edge and keep developing his own product to keep standing out. Because kind of like I was saying about like the look of this looks great. Like the background looks great. Our names look great. Everything looks great. If somebody never did that, maybe we're all just sitting here on a regular old split screen and nobody's even thinking to do it. So the more you influx new talent with new ideas, the more it's going to push that elite tier like further, even more. So I think James Lynch could easily just settle where he's at and be like, I'm good. I'm going to just keep doing what I'm doing and doing it my way. But he doesn't. Like I'll check out his interviews and he has new thumbnails, new templates. He's always figuring out little ways to stand out. And maybe 90% of people don't notice it, but 10% of the people that do respect the hell out of it, and for good reason. So, this is the James Lynch show now. Apparently, I guess we're just going to sit here and talk good about James, which I'm cool with. Why not?
Do a 4-hour podcast on how we're a fan. Just have a big picture of him on the wall, and it's like we're wearing the James Lynch shirts. And it's like you're the best, man. You really are. Like
I got to get one of those big time. I really do want a James Lynch shirt. It's a shame. I'm doing that as soon as this interview's over. I'm going to get one.
Hey, I already got mine. Like I got the shirt. I said I was going to get the shirt and the mug, and then from a marketing perspective, usually when you put something like that out there, you get a promo code for like a free shaker or a free sample of protein. That did not happen.
Really, James?
No, yeah, and I tried it. He was like, "Oh, you said maybe." I was like, "Yeah, where's my free shaker?" He was like, "You can pay for it like everybody else." And I was like,
come on, James.
Yeah, it's like that, man. All right, but and then you're like, support good people in the industry, all that stuff. Like,
well, you've cracked the code. You've made James look like an asshole for 2 seconds. Good job. You've done the impossible, Lucas.
Everyone bombard him to get that shaker cup, which he doesn't even have a shaker cup. That's why, like, if people hit him up about a shaker cup, he's like, "What the hell is a damn shaker cup?"
I don't even have that.
But it's like, hit him up about the free shaker cup. It will happen if we beg hard enough and we get aggressive. He's Canadian. He has to do it by law.
What's funny is that he'll probably like run to Costco and buy a bunch of shaker cups and just start shipping them because he's so nice. He'll be like, I don't even have shaker cups, but I need to make the people happy.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing though we mentioned is that I'm sure he gets bombarded with people asking for advice, and some of them are good about it, like real genuine. And others, like, for me, I even get hit up with advice, which sometimes to me, I'm like, what the fuck are you hitting me up for? But I've had someone hit me up for advice, like, I want to start a podcast, but I can't speak English. So don't do the podcast in English. Can I have Sean O'Malley's phone number? Get out of my DM.
Not that one, yeah.
What are you doing? Come on. And then you have some people like, how do I get to where you're going? It's like, don't talk to me. Talk to somebody else that's, in a big position. Like, be more ambitious than that. What are you doing? But I'm sure someone like him all the time can have Neil Magny's phone number. Can you get me a job at MMA Junkie? It's like, I don't even work there. What are you hitting me up for?
But probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, James Lynch. It's like, I'll see what I can do, man.
Yeah.
I got you for Canada.
Yeah. Dude, it's so true. And that's kind of what I'm saying about a lot of people who don't have egos in the space and aren't afraid to share what they got. That was one thing that I always loved at Flow, for sure, when we were working together, because we all did have our contacts, for sure, the guys that we could just text and arrange something with on a whim. but we all had different people as well. So if it was ever like, hey man, can I get this? We're going to share it. Like, we understand it's all the same team and we're all doing the same thing. It did get murky. And like, I don't know if you felt this as well, but like, as the sport grew and as the UFC grew, fighters locked down a lot, and it had to all go through their managers. And I understand why, or it had to go through either their managers or the UFC in an official setting. Like, I definitely understand that, but there was a time for sure where you could just text fighters on the fly, schedule shit on the fly, talk to them on the phone, record it, run with that, whatever. So it's an interesting dynamic. I think people have this idea of journalism of where we're like doing this hard work and scrounging for our sources and, you know, really bugging these people until we get what we need. But like 99% of the time, it's just flat out not like that. Like, it's all arranged, it's scheduled. We went through proper channels of communication. If we couldn't get it, then we didn't get it and we give up. Like, we're not going to bug somebody relentlessly, because all that does is cause them to literally never answer you and give you anything. So that's not the play. Like, this idea of like this old school hard hitting journalism is pretty much dead for the most part. And that's fine. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, there's still people out there doing it for sure. And they write, you know, maybe 3 articles a year, but those 3 articles are freaking awesome when they do it. So there's that. But like, for the most part, it's so regulated and you can't get those on the fly interviews as much. But what's interesting is like our new podcast with Dwayne and I on the Brawl Network, the Bow and Glow MMA show, like that's how we still do it. Like, Brawl Network doesn't have a UFC credential or any connections that way. So it's literally just me and Dwayne texting fighters and being like, hey, you want to talk on our podcast? And that's the value of building rapport over the years and being trustworthy and credible in that respect. So I love it in that way. But like, watching the game change is super interesting, because then you got to watch how people change with it. Like, what's the adaptation process for writers and journalists? So we've seen the shifts for sure. We've absolutely seen those shifts. And what's next? I guess that's what separates the great ones from just the good ones, right?
And that's the thing. You did notice. I did notice that more and more where fighters, it's like, oh, I'm not doing any pre-fight media now. I just want to focus on the camp. And it's like, this is a 10-minute interview. Like, what is this possibly gonna like? They don't want to do pre-fight interviews anymore. You know, to do a quick interview, you got to hit up this guy who's going to hit up that guy who's going to check with the fighter who you just texted only to tell you maybe yes or no. And then some fight, like Jeff Neal's a great example where his thing was like, if you didn't talk to me as I was coming up, don't talk to me now. And he was like, I got 4 people I talk to now. Luckily, I was part of those 4, which I'm sitting there like,
nice.
Like, you know, you're like, holy shit, like, I'm part of those 4. Yeah. But, you know, I'm seeing that more and more where it's like, if you didn't jump on the bandwagon before, like, you try to come on now, unless, of course, you're an aerial or something, in which case.
Right. Then they're good. Like, we want that exposure regardless. Yeah.
Exactly. But you mentioned the thing about, like, people think you run for scoops. Like, I'm not someone that ever, like, I don't have scoops really or on purpose. I don't break a lot of news. The one time I did have a big news, I was literally, just to tell you how it fell into my lap, I'm on the toilet, right? I'm on my phone and I get a random text about something. And I'm like, yeah, cool. And then I'm going on Twitter. I'm like, does nobody know about this? And so, you know, I'm like, all right, what's the journalism thing? Hit up 3 people from different. Can they
you need your sources.
It? Yeah. Right. So I get all my sources. I'm like, I mean, listen, you know, still on the toilet, just doing my journalism. You know, how people think, you know, I'm sitting at a desk with a pencil behind the ear. Managed to confirm it, and I'm putting it on Twitter. I'm like, holy shit, like, I got it, and I have all the information I need, everyone confirming it. And then nobody acknowledged it, you know. So you think you put it out there and you're like, boom, you're welcome.
Yeah. Right.
Like,
I've just blessed your day.
Right. It's like, there you go. The fight was canceled and you heard it here first. News only breaks once, or something like that. Where are my Breaking Bad gifts? And then Brett, like 30 minutes later, reports it again. You know, like I said, you can't break news twice, or like you said. And then it's like, oh, this fighter is going to try to come in as a replacement. I'm sitting there like, hold on. All of my sources just told me both fighters are out of it. So I'm excited. I'm like, holy shit. Like, you know, so I put out, like, I'm staying strong on my scoop. Literally no one gave a shit. Like, you know, and like the only victory I have from it is if you go on Wikipedia or wherever, I'm like the official source of the fight.
Nice. There you go.
I'm like, I'll take what I can get, but you definitely feel like that flow combat thing where you got to throw the gifts, and it's like, you know, give me credit. Like, you know, I never break things. Let me break one. Like,
let me have this one.
I knew.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and I knew Brett, what he was doing. Like, he had a manager who was trying to force a matchup. And I was like, I know this is what's happening. So I'm sitting there like, you dick. Yep. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, you got to do what you got to do. I'll take whatever victory I can at that point.
100%. I'm proud to hear you say like that you acknowledge exactly what was happening there, because that's definitely what was happening
Oh,
there.
for
Like
sure.
we've had that happen so many times. I mean, it happens every time, and
Yeah.
I get why, but you get trustworthy with a manager, and they want you to be a mouthpiece for them at some points, and they're telling you things that they know are not going to happen, but they're trying to negotiate,
Yeah.
make it seem like it's going to happen, so their fighter gets a better fight or gets a better deal, whatever it may be. So it's tough, man. And that's one of the hardest things ever, because you want that man, you want to have a good relationship with that manager. Obviously, you want him to keep giving you scoops when they're real. But
Yeah.
those ones, those ones in between when they're not, it's like, man, I see what's happening here and I'm
Yeah.
not super comfortable with it, but I also want to keep you happy. So like that's the ethics of journalism, man. Like you can take obviously full courses on this. Like that's a real thing. It's a real struggle in the MMA media landscape. But for the most part, like that's why I was the same way. Like I was never super focused on breaking news a lot, because
Yeah.
even though when you do it, it's one of the greatest rushes ever for sure. It's like, oh shit, I'm the man right now. Like everybody retweet me, everybody source me, you know, put my link in your story. Like, let's go. And of course, you can hassle Ariel Helwani if you want to when you break news, which is a side benefit, fringe benefits, you know. But it's not worth it so many times. Like when you're wrong, even when you go back and explain why you're wrong or why things went wrong and why you were actually right, but things changed. It doesn't matter. If you're wrong in the end, all people remember is that you were wrong.
I have to say, man, I think from my days at Flow Combat, right? Like I remember at one point we had every fighter was getting interviewed by 3 different guys at Flow Combat. Like it was crazy the amount of interviews, but I got to a point where people didn't know my name. They knew me as Flow Combat guy.
Nice.
You know what I mean? And it was like, you know, hey, this is Lucas. And then you'd see like the question mark, you know, I've interviewed you 7 times, like from Flow Combat guy. It's like, I'm going to be in trouble when I'm no longer with Flow Combat, because I'm going to be just guy.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it was crazy. It got to that point where it really was just like, you know, I didn't even say my name. It was just, you know, the dude from Flow Combat that looks 16, but you know, he's older than that. Come on, give him something. Like, and then you leave, and then it's like, you know, I'm no longer a Flow Combat guy. I'm this guy. And then people are like, no, you're a Flow Combat guy. It's like, what do you mean? And then we got to a point where there was no Flow Combat guy ever or anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, there's no Flow Combat guy. Stop calling me that. Like, you know, and then you try to tell people like, you know, Lucas Grandsire. It's like, name's too complicated. We like Flow Combat guy. And you're just like, oh, that's going to be the rest of my days. Like even Julian Marquez, I always say, like, people talk about like, you know, do fighters recognize you? Every time I text them, I have to reintroduce myself. Like, we did an interview there. I was Flow Combat guy at one point for you. I was this guy. Like every time it's always like, how do you have my number? It's like, you gave it to me. I got it from you. Like every time it's like, you know, Flow Combat guy, you know, the green and the wave. Like
this happened.
It got crazy. It got really crazy at one point.
That's really funny, but I can't blame him. Like he's got Miley Cyrus hitting him up, so I get it. Like the DMs get a little filled, I'm sure, for Julian. He can't remember Flow Combat guy. It's fine. I wouldn't take it to heart, dude. He means no harm.
Speaking of Flow Combat guy, I have to say, like, I have to, you know, say something since we're on air and stuff. The fact that car was photoshopped to the Flow Combat logo, and I don't know how I didn't realize that, but I don't know. When I first saw it, like to me, it just made sense. There's a Flow Combat mobile, and then you said it's Photoshop, and I zoomed in, and I was like, "This is very clearly Photoshop." Like, and this whole time, I was like, "They did a whole ass road trip with a Flow Combat car," and then you're like, "You dumbass! It's just a car." Like that really, like that gift, like that was the real feelings. Like you truly broke my heart in that moment.
I'm trying to remember. I don't think literally one person knew that was fake or like called out our shenanigans. So I don't know. I was literally just going through my phone and like it could have been a Facebook memory or something as well. You know, they'll just remind you of stuff in the past. I think that's actually what it was. And it popped up and I was like, that's hilarious. Like, should I just tweet it now that this has been fake all along? But dude, it looked from a distance, it looked super legit. But like you said, if you zoom in, you can definitely tell that it's clearly just the Flow Combat logo photoshopped on the side of a white Charger. But it is never there.
No, because I remember seeing it, and then, you know, it's like you don't overthink it. You're just like, they're doing a road trip, they're in a car, they're with Flow Combat, they have a Flow Combat car. Like they sent him a cool decal that's a little bit shaped weird. Like I don't know how it's so straight on a curved car, but sure enough. And then you zoom in, and you feel like that whole road trip was a lie. Like, did that road trip really happen? Did they sit down and talk to Jim Miller? I don't know anymore because the car's not real.
Now, Mackenzie Dern was actually a hologram as well. They were
Right.
all holograms, but it's amazing what technology can do nowadays, for sure. So I'm proud to look back and say that that was all fake, but we played it really well and people loved it. So that's what matters.
So listen, man, I have to say, like, first of all, is there a video version of your podcast at the Brawl Network? 'Cause I promise you, if you look at my YouTube, I've typed in Hunter, Dwayne, Brawl, Dustin, video,
Yeah.
podcast, MMA. I've typed in everything you can think of. I cannot for the life of me find the video version of the
Okay.
podcast.
So right now there is not a video
Because
version,
you're
but
teasing us with those
I
clips,
know,
Hunter. Like, let me
I
just put
know.
that out there.
I know it is a huge tease, but here's the payoff that I'll give you guys is that the video does exist. I record everything on video. We're just working on setting up an official YouTube channel, getting it branded, and like we said earlier, looking okay, presenting well. Once that's all done, we'll back upload everything else, but then every new one will also go up on video. But right now it is just audio on, wherever. Spotify, Google
Yeah.
Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff.
So I listened to the episode where you and Dwayne kind of gave us the behind the scenes, and I was at work, so I'm sitting in a truck all day, and the guy I was riding with that day, his big thing is playing super loud Christian music and loud sermons. So at that point, it's like and it's loud, you know what I mean? Like my headphones are all the way up, and I'm like, let me listen to this good part because anything behind the scenes, like I love it. Like give me
Yeah.
that, and it was so good because you guys do bring that certain like you have other people's bullshit. And then you got us. And it was
Mhm.
such an enjoyable podcast. I was kind of pissed. It was only 45 minutes. I was
Yeah.
like, you were like, more's coming. It's like, I want it now. Like this
Give
is
me
not
that.
good enough. Like we've
Yeah.
scratched the surface. Like,
You're right.
like we want to hear more of the behind the scenes. Now that you guys are free to talk about that kind of stuff.
For sure, man. It's super liberating. And I know that I can speak for Dwayne on that front too, in that you have to bottle up so much, right? Whenever you're working for somebody, like we said earlier, when you're working for a company and there's money at stake, there's reputation at stake, investors, sponsors, all these things, you have to neuter yourself to a degree. But at the Brawl Network, we don't have to do that right now. We are
I
allowed to
know.
pretty much just say whatever we want, and we can pop off because we don't have UFC credentials regardless, nor do we have any intent of covering events in person right now. I'm not saying that won't ever change. Who knows? But our thing has always been fighter relationships and things like that, which I think we've made extremely clear through those road trips. Like I said, they were just holograms, but the holograms seem to like us, so that's cool. And they keep in touch with us and stuff like that, so that's good. And like I said, that's how we get all of our interviews, man. And you kind of said this earlier about Jeff Neal, but it is crazy how many fighters to this day, when we text them to talk, it's like, I don't really do media, but you guys have always been so cool with me, or you guys have always treated us well. You guys have always been there for me. I'll do it for you guys. Like that's a real thing. Like fighters will absolutely pick and choose who they talk to. And I'll tell you what, when I was at Flow Combat, like in it, doing it, I always thought like, man, it's your job to do this. Like you got to do this. You don't get to pick and choose. Now I completely feel the fighter. Like I'm like, I get it, man. Like I wouldn't want to talk to me in 2015 either. I don't want to talk to me now. So I get it. But it's like it's funny because like I said earlier about editing, when there's a piece of yourself in it and you feel kind of that fragility that comes with somebody critiquing your work that you truly care about, that's fighters, man. Like you got to think these people are going through however long their camp is, it could be 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it is. But even when they're out of camp, they're training, they're watching their diet, hopefully, unless they're Johnny Hendricks. They're being I couldn't resist.
Little shot at Johnny Hendricks.
Johnny Hendricks is one of my favorite fighters ever. That's the real hilarity of it, is that I actually love and respect what he did, and I just could never understand the weight misses. I really couldn't, but that's a totally different story.
Because you guys did cut weight and piss off all the MMA media in the process of doing it and documenting it. I remember how great it was seeing like I had an Oikos yogurt for lunch, and it was like, this is the content I live for. Like, that's why we couldn't. Like Johnny Hendricks was like, you guys won't do it. And you're like, who? Who won't do it?
Who won't do it? That's literally okay. So we'll tangent on that because that's well, Johnny Hendricks literally. I don't remember if he had just missed weight or was just talking about how rough his weight cut was and was about to miss weight. I don't remember the timing of it.
I want to say it was pre-fight. It was the fight before with Neil Magny, right? And it was, I feel like pre-fight, and everybody's on his ass about missing weight, which I'm pretty sure he did again.
Right. Yeah, he did miss.
Yeah.
Dude, he missed. Okay. I don't want to get it wrong, but this could definitely be wrong. But I'm going to say what I think happened because it's so beautiful. He was saying he was saying like, I'm with a nutritionist now, and he taught me, I can have Whataburger. I can eat Whataburger if I want. I just don't eat the fries. I just don't eat the fries with the burger. So like, he was just openly admitting to that's real. I'm 100% positive about that. He was saying like he could still eat fast food burgers, and then he missed weight by a quarter pound, like 171.25. I swear this happened. So like, how beautiful that you talk about eating fast food burgers and then you miss weight by a quarter pound, the quarter pounder being one of the most iconic burgers on earth. Dude, you can't write poetry like that. Like, that's just too beautiful. So whenever he went on his rant of like, I would love to see one of you guys lose 20 pounds. And he says now that he said 30 pounds, but I'm pretty sure he said 20 pounds. So Dwayne and I were like, lose 20 pounds in 6 weeks? I think we could do that. Now, granted, we're carrying a little extra flub and a little extra to lose than Johnny Hendricks or any elite athlete carries. But the fact remains that it's mostly mental and discipline. And if you just care about it, you can get your weight down. It's not that hard. There's no real science. I know there is science for sure. And I'm sure Mike Dolce could listen to that and be like, bro, what do you mean there's no science to losing weight? I'm sure there is, but I'm also sure that just eating clean and drinking a lot of water works for like 100% of humans.
I just remember how awesome it was. Like, every media member's like, respect, man. I totally get it. And you got two guys who are like, hold up. We can literally just lose weight, create content, and then, I think Snowden was the one that kept coming after you guys. Like, oh, but you have extra weight. And it's like, okay, he challenged him. He didn't say cut weight after you get in shape. He said just do it. And what did they do? They just did it. Like, are you doing it? No. Like, he said you won't do it. They took this is the prime flow combat, and they did it. They did the damn thing.
Exactly. And Snowden's another guy I like a lot. And obviously we worked together at Bleacher Report. So he was half just ribbing us, half joking and everything like that. But that's what I'm saying. Like, he wasn't wrong. Like, it is obviously easier for an average Joe who sits behind a keyboard for 12 hours a day to lose 20 pounds than an athlete whose body is already somewhat shredded and doesn't have a lot to lose. And furthermore, I'm not putting my body through punishment every day, so it can handle that kind of, change. I get all that. But the fact remains, man, when people miss weight, it does blow my mind a little bit in very unique circumstances where it's like an incredibly short notice fight or something like that. You get food poisoning the night before weigh-ins and you have to rehydrate because you're so dehydrated, which apparently just happened. So I get that. Like, I understand that. But for the most part, if you miss weight, that's 100% on you, buddy. Like, you could have done that.
I have to know. I don't know how much you can tell us, but how are the numbers on those pieces? I know I was following along every time an article came out. I was like, I have to know the progress. And I forgot who it was. There's one of you who just all of a sudden just kept dropping out of nowhere, and then it eventually stopped. But I remember watching those religious leagues. I was excited. I was like, they're doing it. But how well did those do on the website?
They did really well, man. I mean, we ran it back. Like, we did 2 weight challenges at Flow Combat because the first one did so well, and then we just got fat again, obviously. So we were like, let's just do that again. That was fun. And it did, they both did really well, and they were good for us too. Like, it was motivating for me personally. It doesn't hurt for me to lose, 30 pounds. I'm like 6'3", probably 230 right now. Like, I can definitely lose weight. That wouldn't hurt a thing. So it was nice to have that. Like, if you don't do this, A, you're just going to look silly because you've been calling out Johnny Hendricks so much and you're going to be just like him. But B, like, there's a whole audience of people reading your shit and expecting you to do well. So I mean, it was pure accountability in the best sense. I highly recommend it. You're kind of talking me into just doing it again. I might have to.
You got to round up as many media members as you can and, like, cut weight challenge. Obviously, some guys, it's like, they're like, I don't have any weight to cut, but I'm sure you could get a large chunk of these guys to join you in eating 6 almonds and an oikos for dinner. Like, I feel like this could happen.
Nothing
Speak
wrong
it
with
into
that.
existence.
Dude, this right here, the frosty beverage, that's the hardest thing to cut out. That's by far the hardest thing for me to drop. Because, like, my dad was diabetic growing up, so cutting out sugars and carbs and things like that was never hard for me because I didn't grow up eating and drinking that stuff. So that was huge right off the bat. Like, if you literally just drink water and cut out processed sugars and processed carbs, you're going to lose weight, and it's going to happen fast. Like, it really wasn't hard. To Snowden's credit and Johnny Hendricks' discredit, I guess, it was actually incredibly easy to lose that 20 pounds. Like, we weren't killing ourselves to do it.
I feel like we're gonna reignite a beef with everyone. Like, if this guy can do it, why can't you do it, dumbass? Like, I feel like something's gonna happen from this
Yeah.
legendary, piece of, let Hunter explain to you, fighter, how you're supposed to cut those 20, 30 pounds. Eat your almonds, your oikos, and chill with like, the diabetes inducing stuff, my guy.
100%. Johnny Hendricks is going to be telling me how to write in no time. Like, I'm sure that's exactly how it feels for them. Like, dude, this guy is here giving dieting advice and exercise, losing weight advice. Like, no, you don't get to do
Could you
that.
imagine how pissed you'd be? Because I'm pretty sure you lost a fight, missed weight, challenged all these guys, and then you got these two dudes that are on there like, we're gonna do what you couldn't do, and then you're sitting there like, do you really gotta rub it in some more, man? Like
I know.
seriously?
I know. The thing is, it's like, it really was all respect to Hendricks. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. Like, we really liked Johnny Hendricks. And I think that's why we thought it was funny, was because it was like, it was a guy that we respected and appreciated, but he had this weird quirk. And his weird quirk was just that he blatantly disregarded making weight. Like, when he was talking about eating fast food burgers, that's when I was like, okay, that's the green light for us to do this thing, because
Right.
he's a parody of himself at this point. Like he has to be making a joke, right? Like, that can't be serious, but it was. So like, that was the beauty, and that's why I love Johnny Hendricks. I mean, how I am with fighters is like, when you can be totally weird, but like, if that's you and that's your true self and you're putting it out there, I love that. Like, I want you to embrace what is you. So like, whenever Johnny Hendricks was embracing the fact that he just wanted to eat Whataburger, I'm like, that's my guy. I love it.
I love like that. That sounds like something like the average guy would say, like, just don't eat the fries, man. And like that's protein and carbs to fuel your. It's like carbs to fuel your what? Like, don't eat the bread. Like,
Yep.
eat the fatty burger. Come up with some
Yep.
excuse about how it's protein, but just don't eat the fries. It's like, oh boy, like this isn't going anywhere good.
Dude, the total irony being is like, to do that, I did the keto diet, which on the keto diet, you can absolutely eat all the burgers you want, like you said, without the bun. Like, just take the bun off, eat the cheese, eat the meat, you're good. So like, the funny part of it was that you could still eat some junky stuff and get away with it if you literally just take the bun off, or don't have the wrap, put it in a salad. Like, that was my huge hack. That's my life hack right there. Throw meat and cheese over lettuce and you're good. That's keto, bro.
That's what it is, right? Because they're like, you can eat as much fat, and then I've seen some where they're like, don't eat vegetables; those are carbs. And it's like, hold on,
It's
like
like, wait,
maybe this is why everybody's telling us this shit is unhealthy. Like, I'm really
right.
confused. Like, am I supposed to eat them or not?
Right. The research it's conflicting. I don't know. I haven't been up on it as much, but there is like a layer of keto where certain vegetables do have a lot more carbs than most. And especially fruits more than vegetables.
Oh,
Like, fruits are just pure sugar, all natural sugar carbs. And like, sweet potatoes, which normally you see a sweet potato and you're like, wow, that's a really healthy thing to eat. I should totally eat that. Not on keto. So it's like, there's a lot of things that conventional wisdom tells you are healthy to eat, like fruits and sweet potatoes and certain vegetables. But keto comes in as like, now, way too many carbs, way too many sugars. You know what you should eat instead? A whole stick of butter. That's really good for you. That's pure fat.
That's exactly what it is. It's like, no carbs and butter. Hold up. Listen, before we wrap up, though, I have to know, what's the plan with the Brawl Network? Like, are we talking the Brawl Flow, the Combat Network? Like, this feels like a rebranding, right? Like, these two
Yeah.
guys just went to a different team, and we're gonna see them rise up and then find the next James Lynch and all these guys. Like,
Yeah.
what's the plan with the Brawl Network?
Well, I definitely get where your head's at, because that is definitely what we're eventually working towards. I'm not saying there's no short-term plan for it to be that. Right now it's basically Dwayne and I's podcast with maybe an MMA article sprinkled in here and there. I was talking earlier about Josh Emery.
Yeah.
He wrote that piece on Izzy, so there's that up on the site. But for the most part, we're not covering events. We're not going to have all your pre and post fight stuff that you would find pretty much anywhere else. So right now we're focusing kind of on our niche, which is the podcast, and then we're expanding out from there. So we do have some people joining. We have Mike Pendleton, we have Matt Quiggins coming on. So we have some guys that I've touched base with and worked with in the past, kind of like you as well, where I help mentor them a little bit, help bring them up. So they were people that I trusted, that I was like, hey, if we're gonna build something new, let's do this. So if your busy schedule allows, maybe the Brawl Network will come calling for you in the future. Like I said, I carry this from Flow too. Like, I don't want people to write for free. So I understand that in the beginning, when things are starting up, you got to do it for free. But like, when you're at a certain point, I'm not going to, ask you or ask James Lynch to come write for free. Like, I don't expect you to do that. I don't want you to do that. So that's not where I'm at right now, but we're going to slowly build this thing up. And for sure, I mean, like you said, Dwayne and I do have the experience and the pedigree, so to speak, to build a team that can compete in the space. So that's always exciting to us. That's something that I think for sure is an end goal there at the Brawl Network. But man, they're beefing up so huge, just network wide. Like they cover NFL, MLB, NHL. They're covering every sport, college sports, everything. And I don't even know how many writers are there now. Like literally at least 100 writers network wide. They're getting so big so fast, and it's really exciting to be a part of. So I'm anxious to see where it goes, man. I mean, that's what pulled Dwayne and I out of the weeds to do it, was the opportunity. It had to be the right opportunity. And this Brawl Network being like, here's the keys to the castle. Go ahead and decorate it however you want. We don't care. Like, we know you're terrible interior decorators, but we trust you. So that felt good to just be like, all right, let's do this thing how we want to do it. So literally an offer too good to refuse. So that's what it is right now. So where it's going, is it going to be what Flow Combat was? Probably not exactly. Like, I think if we had to do Flow Combat over again, we would change some things. So this is our opportunity to kind of redo it the right way and get back on track, get back in the space. Like I said, who knows? Maybe another road trip in the future, maybe event coverage in the future. I don't know. I'm not saying that is or isn't happening. I'm just saying that literally anything is on the table for us there right now.
And that was the thing. Like, when I saw you guys were reunited, even if it was for a podcast, I'm like, I'm sure they can lure them into doing so much more than that. Like, that's just how you bait them in. Like, I was excited, not even from like, sometimes you see stuff like that and you're like, oh, maybe they're looking for an extra guy. I didn't even care about that. It was like, wow, you got these two dudes back. And then, obviously it said they're looking for contributors. So, you got Test of Water, whatever. But I was very excited just because it's like, you have a winning formula with these two guys. And if you let them do their things, that's what it is at the end of the day. If it's just like you guys only do recaps and shit, like, it's not going to work. That's not what you guys excel at. But it's like, if you give them, like you said, the keys to the castle and just do whatever, I'm excited to see this thing happen because we've seen you guys do it before. And it's like this time I was super excited when I saw it. I was like, and you got both of them. You know what I mean? So you've seen people try to get Dwayne back in and you can tell he's not sure. But it's like you got both of them and they're both making content, a podcast now with the fighters they have a good relationship with. I know I was super excited about, where you guys are going to take this thing.
Man, the first thing that struck both Dwayne and I was like, we should have been doing a podcast years ago. Why weren't we doing this? Like that was our first reaction, was like, why did we just do these interviews? Because so like peek behind the curtain, if you will, whatever, spoiler alert, our podcasts are literally just how our interviews with fighters would have been, except you would have never heard that full interview before. What you would have got was our article off that interview, like all the transcribing and then turning it into an article, never a Q&A, like telling a story, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But now what you're getting is literally just the raw interview that led to those stories in the past. So it's like, why? It's so much easier. It's so much less work. Like, why did we transcribe and then put ourselves through hell writing what we thought were good stories, trying to tell an actual story in like a narrative format? Why did we do that whenever we could have just recorded the interview and then posted the audio or the video of it? So like all along, we were probably doing the wrong thing in retrospect. Like now doing the podcast, we're like, if we would have got in on this in 2015, 2016, it could be a big podcast right now, But now it's obviously super crowded and tougher to stand out. So we got a bigger challenge in front of us, but that's fine. That's exciting. But I was telling Dwayne as well, is like, dude, imagine the road trip based around podcasts instead of the article. Because like one thing that always gets left behind on the road trip is like, oh, you guys did all this cool stuff, but like how hard how hard it was to get things published and to do this on the road. Like so many times we were writing on our laptops in the car with using our cell phone as the Wi-Fi, like as a mobile hotspot with spotty service, and trying to upload videos with spotty service or terrible hotel Wi-Fi. Like it was just so difficult to get that content out to the world the right way. So now it's like, if we would have just based every gym around a podcast, okay, today we're at Jackson Wink, there's going to be a Jackson Wink podcast. And it could be several different fighters that come in and talk on the podcast, but like, this is our podcast. And for sure, like you said, there will be a video component and there will be that, but then we don't have to kill ourselves writing articles and covering it the way Yeah, like we just didn't approach it the right way from a content perspective. So we learned that lesson now, and it's exciting because at the Broad Network, who knows, man? Maybe now's the time to make things right.
There we go. Before we leave, though, before I let you shout out all your stuff, transcribing is the worst. Can we just like take
Uh,
10 seconds to talk about how awful and how it's the worst thing in the world and how it just sucks?
Dude, what's crazy is that it never gets better. Like never.
No,
To this day.
no.
To this day. And I think I'm pretty fast at it, honestly. I'm pretty proud of my transcribing skills, transcription skills, but and I've got a process for sure. And I've even in the past, I've like gone into Premiere Pro or any kind of audio or video editing software and tried to slow down the person's voice so you could just type at full speed, but then it gets all distorted and weird and that doesn't work. The auto transcriptions never work. Paying somebody to do it doesn't make sense. And then even if you do, you don't trust them enough that they did it right. And then and you end up listening to it anyway and going over their work. So it's like no matter what you do, transcribing is that one thing that you just got to bite the bullet on and say, this sucks, but got to do it.
100%. I feel like it's always important to shout out just how awful it is. Listen, before I always like to end it, and I've only ever had one guest like tell me they weren't going to do it. And it's like, it's my podcast, but you have social media, you have places you work, stuff like that. I'm sure you have plenty of things you want to shout out, plug, all that good stuff. Now would be the time.
All right, man. Well, I'm at Hunter A Homistek. It's Hunter A Homistek. Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. You could pretty much find all my current work there. I'm doing a lot more than just the Brawl Network podcast. As Lucas alluded to, I got my hands in all kinds of different places. So I try to keep things moving, man. It's really exciting for me. Brawl Network right now, for sure. It's called the Bow and Glow MMA Show. And that's on Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that you're looking for your podcasting needs, we're there. So go subscribe, share that, check out our stuff. We've had Dustin Poirier, Frankie Edgar, Gray Maynard on the show so far, several other big names, awesome names. Jim Miller. The Jim Miller interview was awesome. Our most recent one was Corey Anderson, who I know a lot of people will kind of scoff and be like, hey, Corey Anderson, it's just Corey Anderson. But like, go listen to the interview is all I can say. Like if you listen to the Corey Anderson interview and don't come away with a newfound respect for Corey Anderson, then you're just lying to yourself. Literally one of the best talks I've ever had with a fighter. So definitely go check that out. And yeah, man, subscribe, share the podcast. We're going to keep things moving. It doesn't end here for sure. You know how Dwayne and I do it. We're always looking to grow and build it.
Boom. There we go. Hunter, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. This was awesome. And for the people listening who made it this far, holy shit, you made it to the end of the podcast. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.